Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and a very warm welcome to you. Today we're diving into a story from the Quran that asks a really critical question. What happens when a civilization gets so powerful, so advanced, that it kind of forgets where all that strength really comes from? This is the story of a mighty people, the prophet sent to guide them, and a timeless lesson on the clash between pride and faith.
Wow. I mean, this one line just perfectly captures the people of Ad, doesn't it? Just imagine a civilization at the absolute peak of its power. They were masters of architecture and engineering, but they came to believe their own strength was the ultimate force in the universe. And it's that pride, that fatal flaw, that becomes the heart of the conflict in this entire story.
All right, so let's set the scene a bit. Let's paint a picture of this civilization. Who were the people of Ad? So try to picture this. A nation so incredibly advanced, they were carving these massive, monumental structures right out of the landscape in the sand dunes of southern Arabia. They built towers, they commanded immense strength, and they really saw themselves as completely invincible. I mean, for them, their power wasn't just a fact of life, it was their entire identity. Now, this is a really crucial point. Notice how the Quran introduces the prophet sent to them. He's not some stranger, not an outsider. The Quran specifically calls him their brother Hūd. And that choice of words is so deliberate, so important. It really emphasizes that the message, this warning, was coming from someone they knew, someone from their own community. It made it personal, not some foreign idea. Okay, so what was the message that their own brother Hūd brought to the table? Well, his message was incredibly direct. Super simple, really. He was calling them back to the basics. Worship the one true creator, Allah, and leave behind all the idols they had literally made with their own hands. This wasn't just a small suggestion. He was challenging the entire foundation of their society, telling them flat out that their gods were nothing more than their own inventions. The specific Arabic word the Quran uses here is muftarun, and it's such a powerful term. It means fabricators or inventors of falsehoods. Just think about that for a second. He wasn't just saying, hey, your gods are wrong. He was accusing them of manufacturing a complete and total lie. It was a direct hit, right at the heart of everything they believed in. And to prove he was sincere, that he had no ulterior motives, Hūd makes it crystal clear he has nothing to gain from this personally. He's not after money, he's not after power or status. His reward is only from God. And then he appeals directly to their intellect. He asks them, then will you not reason? In a society that was probably just running on tradition, he's asking them to just stop and think. And here's the thing, his call wasn't just about giving stuff up. It was actually a really generous offer. He's basically saying, look, if you just ask for forgiveness and turn back to God, I promise you'll get what you value most. You'll get rain for your lands, you'll get prosperity, and you'll get even more strength on top of the incredible strength you already have. He was arguing that truth faith would actually amplify their power, not take it away. Now, you'd think that's a pretty compelling offer, right? More rain, more strength, what's not to like? But this is where we see their reaction. And boy, does it reveal everything about where their heads were at. They met his sincere, generous call with just a massive wall of pride. So their first response is just pure dismissal. They're like, oh, Hūd, you haven't brought us any clear proof. Which is so ironic, right? Because they're completely ignoring the proof of a creator in the incredible world all around them. Their pride had literally made them blind to it. They basically just say, look, we're not going to throw away centuries of our traditions just because you, one of us, says so. And of course, when just dismissing him didn't work, what did they do? They went for personal attacks. It's a classic move. They started accusing him of being cursed or possessed or just plain crazy. Because in their minds, there's no way a sane person would dare to challenge their gods. He must have been struck by some evil force. So just imagine this scene. How does one man respond when an entire nation turns on him, calling him a liar, calling him a madman? Well, Hūd's response? It's honestly one of the most powerful declarations of pure faith you will ever come across. I mean, this is just breathtaking. The courage here is off the charts. He's standing there, completely alone, and he challenges not just the leaders, not just the army, but the entire civilization and all their false gods combined. He basically says, all right, go ahead, plot against me, all of you together. and don't give me a single moment of rest. He is literally daring them to bring it on, to do their absolute worst. So you have to ask, where does this incredible fearlessness even come from? How can one person do that? Well, it's rooted in this core Islamic concept called tawakkul. And this isn't just a simple belief. This is the absolute, unshakable trust that everything is in God's hands. Hūd knew with total certainty that if God was his protector, then nothing and no one in all of creation could ever truly harm him. And then Hūd explains the source of his certainty with this incredibly powerful image. He says that God holds every single living creature by its nasia, that's its forelock. Now, in that culture, grabbing something by the forelock signifies total control, total sovereignty. So just imagine that. Every single being, from the tiniest insect to the mightiest king, is completely within God's grasp. That's why he was fearless.
So, after showing them his unshakable faith, Hūd delivers the final warning, the ultimatum. He basically tells them, look, my job was just to deliver the message. I've done that. If you reject it, that's on you. But you need to understand this. You're not harming God in any way with your disbelief. He'll just remove you, and he'll replace you with another people who actually will listen. And so the story reaches its inevitable conclusion. A clear choice was offered, and a very clear choice was made. And now we get to see the consequences of that choice. You know, the fate of the people of Ad follows this divine pattern that we see again and again in the stories of the prophets. First, a clear warning is delivered. Second, it's met with arrogant rejection. Third, by God's mercy, the handful of people who actually believed are saved. And fourth, those who insisted on their arrogance, they're removed. It's a really clear system of cause and effect.
And the final verdict on them in the Quran? They couldn't be clearer. It says they knowingly denied the signs of their Lord, and they disobeyed his messengers. And notice that it says messengers, plural. Because in this view, rejecting one prophet is like rejecting the entire chain of guidance. Instead of listening to God, they chose to follow the orders of their own stubborn, arrogant tyrants. So after all that, what was their ultimate legacy? That incredible, mighty civilization, with all its power and its giant monuments, was reduced to nothing more than a cautionary tale. Their very name, Ad, basically became a byword for ruin, a permanent warning sign in history for all future generations about where that kind of unchecked pride will always lead. And this whole story, it leaves us with a really deep question to think about, one that's for all of us. The story of Ad really forces us to ask ourselves, at what point does our strength, our technology, our success, our achievements, at what point does it stop being a blessing from God and start becoming the very thing that blinds us to the truth? It's a question that is absolutely timeless, just as relevant for us today as it was for them, way back then in the sands of Al-Ahqaf.